Okay. Welcome everybody, both in person and virtual. Welcome to our STEM the Gap NicTALK, where we're planning to basically just talk conversation about women in STEM and STEM education, basically just experiences and advice. So here are our amazing panelists. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. So Dr. Jean Burke, I am in the Chemical, Physical, and Forensic Science program, and I teach primarily organic chemistry.
All right, I'm Dr. Jenny Hayden. I'm in the Department of Biological Sciences. I'm a molecular microbiologist. Yeah, that's it.
Dr. Yvonne Miranda. I am a professor in education department and I teach pre-service teachers and I'm also a STEM educator.
I'm Alison Edwards. I'm a library ambassador here at Cressman Library, and I'm a forensic science and biology double major.
And then I'm Nicole Rivera. I'm the public services librarian, and I am also one of the NICs. The other NIC is behind the camera, so he will be our tech person. If I look down, it is because for the people who are online, I will be on the lookout for any questions you have, as long as my tablet doesn't die. If it does, then Nick will be on the lookout for any questions that come in.
Yes.
And also, as much as this is a Nick talk, this is actually an Alison talk. Because Alison ran, moderated, started, created the questions today, invited the panelists. So this is her event. I am just here to help her.
So to start off, I have a bit of a fun question, basically where everything started. So as a child, what did you guys want to be when you grew up? Did you always see yourselves where you are now, or were you somewhere completely different when you were younger?
So I'll start. So when I remember always playing being a doctor. I always wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to I wanted to grow up and just help patients. I wanted to help kids, adults, and then somewhere along the way, um, because of my culture and because of my parents and my family, somehow that wasn't the option. I went into education. That was the option, and that's how I went, being an educator. But even as a classroom teacher, I've always loved science, and that's one of the main subject areas that it was never neglected or never thrown out the window. It was something that was really adamant and really persistent, and I did science with fidelity every single day in my classroom, and it got to the point that I'm here in college, and I still like I work with my pre-service teachers, and we have to do something with science. So and again, I can tell you more about that, but so that's how I got started.
Yeah, so I really didn't see myself as a scientist at all. When I was a little kid, I really loved to read and to write, and so I kind of thought I wanted to be a writer of some kind. Yeah, but mostly I was just really curious about a lot of different things, and so kind of moving into high school, that's when I really got engaged with science. But as a little kid, I really was not excited about science particularly.
My whole family and me thought I would be a biologist, and I still live by it. I try to bring in biology wherever I can. I was that little kid who was constantly catching lizards, frogs. Um, yeah, I give me a log to flip over, and I was there as a billy goat, climbing everything, looking for bugs and stuff. So I always thought I'd be biologist, and it wasn't until high school when I got introduced to organic chemistry, and it really clicked. It hit my love of art. It hit my love of science, which I was always really big into science, and so I just gravitated towards chemistry. I'm the only chemist in my family, and they all look at me like I'm cross-eyed when I start talking. So
That's awesome. Yeah, when I was younger, of course, jumping around so many different pathways, maybe pediatrician, maybe baker, all the weird ones. But the one that always stuck was marine biologist. For some reason, I grew up at the Jersey Shore, so the beach was always right there. So I always thought marine biologists specialize in like sea turtles or whatever. But that was for the longest time until some point in high school when I randomly said forensic science. We still don't know how we got there, but we're here now.
and I actually got my undergrad in psychology. But now looking back, I feel like I should have listened to my high school teachers, because a lot of them were like, you're meant to teach people how to do things, which as a librarian I do, and I also like do research, which I hated in undergrad, but now I found like a new passion for it because I get to choose the topics I want to do. So.
Nice. And that kind of leads into the next question, like what from your earliest memory like inspired you to really change into where you are now? Like what was that defining moment? Was it a person who influenced or inspired you? Was it something you did in a class? Things like that.
I'll start this one. So there's two pivotal points I would say for me. The first was getting introduced to organic chemistry in high school and kind of pushing me towards chemistry. And my second was in grad school. I came out from my undergrad and the job market wasn't great, so I decided I would go and get my master's and PhD because that's what they wanted. And when I was in grad school, one of the things you do is you act as a teaching assistant and you teach labs. So I started teaching and tutoring, and my mentor was brilliant, very smart, but he had a very hard time bringing it down to a new student's level. And I found I really got a good connection between the two, and I loved the aha moments, I call them, when all of a sudden you can see a student click. And so that changed my path from going into industry into wanting to go into academia.
Yeah, for me, so like I just said, my switch got flipped in high school, and I took biology in ninth grade and chemistry in 10th grade, and then I grew up in Virginia, and we had something called Governor's School where you could go basically to another location, and all the area schools kind of fed into it, and they offered biology to 11th graders, and in all honesty, I had a lot of friends that were going, and I was like, okay, sure, I'll go with my friends, because that seems more fun to go somewhere else for half the day. And I just loved it. We took biology and chemistry together, and I had two really great teachers. We got to do a lot of hands-on stuff. We got to run DNA gels, and it was just much more in depth than I had gotten elsewhere, and that really kind of set me on the biology track.
So maybe you have noticed, but I'm at a different spectrum with STEM. Um, so one of my pivotal moments was, again, I've always loved science. I've always done science, but it was back when I was still in the classroom where I was working with a few of my third graders and fourth graders, and like, you know what? You know, the district offers those teacher grants. I'm like, no, let me apply for a grant and let me see, you know, let's have some fun with science and math and all of that. So we did a STEM project and we worked the whole year. I did another one the following year, and then obviously you know that after fifth grade, elementary students, they go to middle school, right? And the one great thing about being a teacher is sometimes your students would visit you back. Those are nice moments. And then, you know, here in a part of the conversation, I'll be like, you know, so what are you doing? Are you, you know, taking some science classes? What are you doing? You know, tell me what you know, about middle life, middle school life. And they were like, especially my girls, would be like, we don't do science. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Like a few years with me, because there was one time where I actually looped with my students, and I'm like, you've been with me for 2 years. We've done science. I'm like, you know, I had the hope that somehow it was cultivated in them, like that love. At least take one science class, but they were like nothing. I'm like, that's really interesting. So that actually took me in learning a little bit more about STEM and why I started initiating for my own knowledge and applying STEM as well. Not just science, but STEM with students at an early age, like with second graders and first graders back in the classroom. So when I came to the college and I'm working with pre-service teachers, again, I do have a lot of connection with the schools. Again, I just deepened my research about the importance of STEM and going back to, you know, to the early grades. And again, that's how I got started. And, you know, it was more of what I saw happening with my former students
actually works as a lab manager, and her work actually had take your kids to work day. So me being a little elementary schooler thought it was the coolest thing to go into the labs, put on the lab coat that was way too big for me, put on the gloves, the safety glasses, and basically just be able to go in the lab and see what they do. And even in college, I've been able to actually intern at her work too, and see it from not just like the fun side, but also like the inner workings and how they operate their lab. So it's really helped just inspire that I do want to do lab work, and really that exposure early on definitely helped, especially figuring out, okay, this is something I really like. This is a path that I really strongly consider, and I'm here now studying it in college. But really, that early education really helped me overall.
There's actually a lot of research that indicates that the earlier you expose kids to any type of science, really anything, right? Um, they'll start to develop knowledge. They'll start to develop motivation. They'll start to develop interest, and the more they learn, the more they're going to increase their knowledge. And the more that they learn, the more confident they become, and the more they know, the more they have the assurance. Okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. Maybe I want to learn this a little bit more, and then they get to expand, that those opportunities because they were exposed to an earlier age, right? There's this sometimes when I talk with my former peers, classroom teachers, sometimes they're like, well, that's not appropriate. How can you teach electricity to first graders? I'm like, you really can. You really can. You just have to bring it down. There's actually a book written by Natalie Wexler. It says the knowledge gap, and it indicates that the lack of exposure to students, all it does is increases this gap, and then it hinders students to develop the knowledge that they need, right? The knowledge that gets increased throughout their elementary years, their middle school years, so that and high school, so that when they come to college, they have a good amount of knowledge that they have learned from previous years. But the thing is that when you introduce these concepts that one might think that might be hard, kids are fascinated. You have no idea, like the ability and capability that young kids have to grasp knowledge when it's set there for them. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we have to talk about my pivotal point.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. I think I have multiple pivotal points because in undergrad, the director before Stephanie was very pushy on getting me into library science. And I was in denial the whole time. I was like, no, I'm going to stick to psychology. I attempted master's psychology program, didn't like it. So then I caved, went to library school, so that was one pivotal point. And then my second one is now with Stephanie and the freedom she allows me to explore library science in a different way. And also with Sherry, because Sherry Snyder, our electronic resources librarian, is teaching me the more technical side of the library also. So I guess I'm approaching it much like Yvonne in a different way. So I'm more the technology aspect, and if we expand STEM to STEAM, also the art aspect. And like doing displays, doing events, doing different things that require art in a more informational literacy based way, where research can be fun. So I guess I'm still having pivotal moments, and like even my personality is doing pivotal, because if I went back in time and told the high school me that I now am in front of a camera speaking, or I go across campus to present and talk about the library, they would think I was crazy. They'll be like, are you sure? Because we used to like still run to the bathroom freaking out from having to public speak to now being who I am now. So it'll be interesting to see how all of our journeys continue and how it continues to pivot and change. Just Stephanie brings water.
Thank you.
But yeah, going off your point with STEM and STEAM, a lot of people, they often think of STEM as like this singular entity, but in reality, there's a lot of different intersectionalities you can have with STEM, whether it be art, literature, history. Can any of you tell us like ways you've seen this intersectionality, whether it be in some of the taught, or just out and about around campus, or just in our day-to-day lives?
Should I go first?
Yeah.
So Alison just took a class with me um, about the creative process in art and science and how they really are the same thing. They really overlap a lot, and um, so that the sort of the idea behind that class was sort of a long time coming. I would say that I actually didn't appreciate for myself how much creativity is needed in science. Like even when I was actually doing it, I didn't think of it as a creative endeavor, but it really is. And so I had when I was a postdoc, I had a colleague who said something about teaching students how to build your creative thinking skills and how much creativity is necessary in science. And I was like, really? I guess. I think I kind of came to that idea late, but I've really appreciated that. Um, so so I just taught that class, but I think I see science everywhere, and I don't think I spend a lot of time talking about history in my classes, but there's always some sort of interwoven pieces of that in almost all of the classes that I teach too. Is some of the history about science, sort of how we come up with ideas or different people in science. Um, yeah, it's everywhere that you look for it. So.
Well, I can go next.
You
So, so again, I can only refer to what teachers, how teachers work with STEM in the classroom at the elementary level and what I do with the pre-service teachers. So one of the things about STEM is it can be integrated with the curriculum, like with literacy, with science, with social studies. And you can really integrate in focus on a certain part of the STEM, right, like engineering. So one, like for a social studies lesson, when we're looking at different communities, we can really look at okay, what is the construction of different homes, in different parts of the world? What is the construction of buildings in different parts of the world, right? And I'm just talking about social studies here. So they can design, look how others have constructed maybe different types of buildings. They look at different materials. They have to think about their own design. And then once they have this, they have built their prototype, they have to test their prototype. Sometimes we can weave in other fields, like, okay, do you want to add some light to your creation of bridge? So that's one way how we connect STEM into the curriculum, especially social studies and literacy. When we look at different types of fairy tales, I love the Three Little Pigs. I always use it in my curriculum. They're constructions of homes. We know about the straws, the sticks, the bricks. It has different types of qualities, right? Attributes to these materials. Material science comes into play here. So they have to, they use the Three Little Pigs. Like, how would you construct your home? What kind of materials are you going to use? Is it going to withstand the elements? Are you going to add any other, integrate any other type of science? So again, so we have different ways in how we integrate STEM or STEAM into the curriculum.
I think you can talk further than just elementary school, because during Mayfair you do the
Oh yeah,
experiment
yeah,
with
yeah.
everyone, and like I'm kind of curious how adults react to that
I know.
event.
So again, so one, I think you're talking about the wands, right? You're
Yeah,
talking
the
about the
wands.
wands. So again, you can tie
And
with
even the robot.
the robots too, right? So okay, I'm getting like, yes, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. So in the summer, you didn't see these right here. I worked with a few students, and we used the B-bots. So the B-bots are really for really primary kids, like kinder and first grade. And what I did was I designed a platform that they can use like on the floor, like a mat, where and it had different types of shapes. And I'm like, yeah, I want you to program your V-bot to go to the area that has all of the quadrilaterals. And again, it's just a different fun way of reinforcing concepts that are learned in the classroom. The one that you're talking about is the making the wands. those are really nice. Like again, kids love different types of fantasy like the Harry Potter. I love to make wands, and one of the an easier one was the popsicle ones. Like you just put one of those LED lights, you put some copper tape and a seatbelt battery, and that's it. You have a really nice working wand.
Sorry to interrupt. We've had somebody in the chat say that they're having some audio issues. Apparently, the only person they can really hear well is Allison, which is interesting because you're all the way over there. So I don't know if you guys need to.
Yeah, I'll come over and check that.
Yeah, I'm getting readings on the mic, but I don't know if it's an issue
Yeah, I
of
can
projecting.
keep
Or...
going.
I know I'm loud, so I've never been accused of not being heard. I'm kind of like Yvonne in the fact that we all see science everywhere. I teach organic chemistry, which is the chemistry of life, really. So I look around this entire room and go, oh, that's an organic molecule. Oh, that's an organic molecule. But one of the things I really love here at Cedar Crest is the opportunity to basically take your science and do these types of really fun creative courses. I have an honors course that I teach with Dr. Walters, and it's cheese, beer, wine, bread, microbes in the kitchen, which lets me get into food science, right? And then through the sophomore expeditions, I get my joy of biology coming back around. So I'm doing Dublin and talking about peat bogs, which allows me to get climate chemistry, and so biology, diversity, of animals and stuff. And so, I think you're right. It's very simple. Everything is science. It's just a matter of how you put it face forward to the student or to whoever you're speaking to. Because everything we do in our life is science. The printing on this paper is science. I mean, I can't think of the number of...
Check this out.
Yep. Number of things. I mean, the light is science, right? The camera is science. So I think, people need to think about that and basically realize that it's everywhere around them. And by learning a little bit about it, rather than being scared of it, they can actually see the world through a different lens.
Yeah, that's awesome. And over the past 2 weekends when I had the progression of art and science, creativity class, it was really cool seeing just the thought processes and how you don't think they're so connected, but the scientific process and the artistic process is very similar, trial and error, testing out different materials, all that. And even I'm also taking a writing class now, which we're actually using online softwares to develop our stories. We're using what's called Twine to basically make these stories, but also have them branching out, so it makes a more interactive story, so it brings in some of that coding aspect as well, but also in a way that both you can develop your writing styles, but also allow some that elementary coding, because there are ways you can get really advanced with it by putting in all the fancy codes to insert images and texts and all sorts of different things, but you can also just simply do this bare minimum, map everything out, and just practice coding that way. So it's really allowing both that art and the computer science to come together. So it's really cool seeing in both those courses how that comes together. It's something I've loved since high school, doing the STEM Academy there, where we were really focused on intersectionality between a whole bunch of different disciplines.
I guess my example now of STEM and STEAM is right now trying to fix the audio. I'm the tech person in the library for all our streaming things, and not only that, each of us in the library have a different aspect of it, but we also come together on it too. So I feel like sometimes the other librarians will say I'm the more creative one, but they have moments of creativity that I didn't even think of, and I'm like, that would be really cool. How can we make it happen? And even this year alone, we did first year seminars where it's exploring different artifacts. So we each brought a different object from home And we had the students look at it in a way of curiosity and creativity to determine what the object was. We never told them what it was. They had to figure it out based off looking at it and use either context clues, first appearances, what's on it, things like that. So I guess we approach STEAM and STEM in a more art and technology way, but also in a science way, because you have to hypothesize and you have to determine, okay, this is my hypothesis, can I get the answer? And another example of that is when we do research with nursing students. They come to us every semester with something called a PICO question, which me and Nick are focusing on remembering what PICO means, but it's population, intervention, I always forget C. Control, and then outcome. And they have to come up with these questions, but they always choose questions that we don't have the answer to yet. Which I've learned in psychology is something that we do. Like, if we want to find something, we create a question to try and get that information, but they're required to do research on it. So I use this technique that I call reverse engineer, because as a kid I used to take things apart to see how it worked and attempt to put it back together. My mom will attest to the fact that I was very bad at it as a child. But reverse engineer and start from the end point and work your way back. So do the research first, then create your question. So with STEM or STEAM, it requires you to find different methods and different viewpoints and perspectives, and then finding that outcome you get really excited, or watching someone find that outcome is really exciting. So I feel like for all of us, and I'm speaking for myself mostly, when we see someone doing that discovery and having that moment because we led them down that path is this really nice and really exciting and engaging. And like when they come back to us, like you said, like my students that worked for me years ago would come back to me and be like, Nicole, I just wrote an article. And I'm like, oh my God, congrats. And I'm like, what's your article about? And let me read it. And I'll attempt to read it. I won't understand it if it's science, but I will try, and they'll break it down for me. But it's a nice feeling knowing you had that impact on them. And like, even today, Alison can say, even though she's still a student, she had an impact, especially on us four, to she made this happen. So,
You know, it's interesting that you're referring to how students need to ask questions and then do the research, and that's one of the things that, at least at the elementary and with the pre-service teachers, we use the engineering design process to help them, at least to help them understand the difference between a science lesson versus a STEM lesson, because sometimes it's really hard to differentiate between the two, but this will give them the opportunity, like what they're creating, they're asking questions, they're doing that research, they're looking at what others have done, they're making a plan, they're implementing their plan, they're testing it, and then the best part is that they have to evaluate, you know, and then reassess and then redo their prototype and test again. You know, that's one of the things that I really like about STEM and STEAM, is because it gives students the opportunity to think at different levels. Not just about, okay, what's the correct answer? Because everyone loves a correct answer. It's not just about that, but it's about what you mentioned, Alison. It's about that thinking process, which is so, so important.
Yeah, I sometimes wish they would talk about that even more, like as we're younger, because a lot of times we're just taught how to take the test, and that's really not helping us learn, retain the information. Because okay, test done, move on to whatever's next, erase, just move on, try and survive the semester. But really, that thinking process can make a world of difference. Just seeing it in that other perspective, having that aha moment from just the way that someone describes something, can really make or break how you learn the information and what you take from it. Because that can be that spark, that could be your pivotal moment to take you down whatever path. So it's really cool just the way all of these processes really connect without us even realizing it. So I guess for the next question, so what has been one of the hardest parts of your experiences in your career so far? Like, what was it? How did you overcome it? Any challenges?
I think I can answer that one. Even though I'm not fully STEM or STEAM, I think the hardest part with any career that I find is proving yourself. Proving that you are the bearer of information and that you know what you're doing, you can lead someone down that path. And I think it's harder for me because I'm still close in age to students. So like our seniors are 21, I'm 29, so that's only an 8-year difference. And it just, sometimes they may not believe that I can lead them down the path. And then once I do, they're like, oh my God, that's so easy. Or like showing them different methods they didn't know was possible. So like even with my students that worked in the library, I tell them I don't necessarily care how you get to the endpoint as long as it's the endpoint you want. And if it's actually gonna work better, show me. Show your coworkers, because it may be an easier method. And everyone has a different way of doing something. It's a matter of how do you prove that it gets you to that point. So I feel like for me that's the hardest thing is proving myself, especially as a young Puerto Rican / Brazilian, pale, so I don't necessarily fit in minorities that are darker skinned than I am and all that. I recognize my privilege, they recognize theirs, and like, how do I prove myself to them type thing.
I think going on that, I think that different time periods, I think the hardest thing's been different at different times. But I think that the imposter syndrome kind of thing is always there. I don't know if it's because I'm a female or what, but there's always that little lagging fear in everything you do, I find. Connecting with the students and all of that I find sometimes is still hard.
Okay.
You want to go?
Yeah.
You do rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. So one of the most challenging aspects of this is changing the mindset of teachers, and thinking that, sometimes the idea is, the kids can't handle it. They can't work in groups. I've seen, older kids who have a hard time working in groups. I'm like, it's tough at the first one, and I tell them, like, the first time I did STEM, oh my gosh, I bombed. It was just a mess. It was such a hot mess that, I was thinking, oh my goodness, why did I do this? But the good thing was that I kept doing it with students, and the more I did it, the better, they got at working together, the better they got at communicating, the better I got at knowing what to do next, and it just takes time. It's just, time and patience, and that's one of the hardest things. Having my pre-service teachers, when they go out to do their student teaching, and even their first year, they're like, they can't handle it. I'm like, well, did you try? Did you give them the chance to develop the skills that are needed to if they have conflict, to problem solve? That's a really important skill. Like, if we don't put them together, they're never going to learn how to problem solve. The teacher is going to give them the answers once again, and that's not what we want our young kids to do. And again, just it's exposing them to really good instruction, to new content, to be able to find whether, you're actually really good at mechanical engineering. Like, have you ever thought about doing this? Giving them those opportunities. But again, it's that mind shift with teachers. The other part is that part of my background, because I come from a very traditional Spanish family, like, and me being the only girl, my dad loves to tinker with stuff, and I'm the only girl, and my brothers were never interested. So I was like, I'm interested, but then I would have my mom in the back. I'm like, she was like, "Mija, come over here, cocina, to the kitchen." I'm like, all right. So obviously I learned everything that my mom taught me, but I'm also interested in what my dad does. Like, even now, like, as a grown up, I asked my dad a few weeks ago to come by, because I wanted to change the light switches, and I'm like really interested, because he's like, there's the hot, there's the cold, there's the ground. The hot is the one who has it's the one who has the electricity engine flowing, and I wanted to learn because I wanted to do it myself next time. And my mom, and I could hear her, she's like, are you coming? Are you coming? So I'm like, so it's that as well. So that has been challenging, helping my very traditional Spanish mom understand that I really like the science part of things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think my answer steps to what you're talking about, right? Is that idea of when there is a failure, right? Sort of taking it and growing from it and doing something new with it, and not making it about me, not making it about like, oh, I'm terrible at this thing, but the sort of recognizing like, okay, I can grow from this and I can, right, make it better next time. That I think, yeah, is always a challenge, right? And it's sort of like related to how we go through school, right? That you go through school and you have to check off the boxes and get your way through, and that's not really how life is, right? So I think that's sort of like at various points, sort of what those failures are have changed, right? But that's the part that I think you have to really kind of push through and move on from being like, okay, this is just a thing I'm bad at too. Okay, this is a thing that I didn't do great this time, but right, I can keep going with it and do something different and yeah, move forward.
Yeah, I guess for me, one of the hardest parts is being just a young woman who's interested in STEM. Especially, you guys would not recognize the high school me. I was a lot more quiet. A lot of people say COVID made me more social. Don't know how. But I was even voted like the shyest senior girl for like senior superlatives. I would never be talking up here in front of people. But when I went to do like my internships and stuff, a lot of people saw me as timid. They thought of me like not really knowing too much. Not that they thought I was stupid or anything, just really inexperienced. But it's like, no, I had like a year of research under my belt. I wanted to do more. I'm still trying to do more, thankfully, because of all the opportunities I've had here. But it's really hard having people see past like the perception. Again, kind of like the imposter syndrome. You start to feel like, am I supposed to be here? If you don't know like that one little thing. But it's really, as long as you're able to get past like those small barriers, because they are small. We just make them really big in our mind. They seem so big, and then we get past them and we look back at the path we walked and we're like, oh, that was really just a stepping stone compared to the wall we thought it was. So really just the perception, I believe, is one of the hardest parts, because once you really just get up there and start talking or whatever it may be, you're really able to show people what you're capable of, and just really able to explore not only your interests in like a workplace setting, but even some of your interests outside, which I think is really valuable.
Can I add to that a little bit, Alison? I think I would guess, right, that probably being at a women's college helps with that a lot, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of data out there about how women's college graduates like go on to do all kinds of amazing things at sort of higher rates than the women that go to co-ed institutions, right? And I graduated from a women's college, and I think that, right, I was not exactly shy in high school, but I think sort of where I see myself now sort of, right, really coming into my own was from that experience of being with other women, of, right, right, it was normal for, right, women to be leaders or for women to be, right, doing all of the things. And so you get that time, I think, to where you don't have to deal with those assumptions, right? And then, right, when you go on into the working world, when you, right, hit some of those problems, it's like, oh, right, you easily recognize it as not you, that it's other people. And I think that's really important.
It's kind of funny, listening to you guys made me think about the fact that opposite. I was raised by my father. And he never, it was just assumed you would go to college. It was assumed that you would do these things. And so I did go to a co-ed, and I was one of the only few female science majors, chemistry majors. And thinking back on all of that, I palled around with all the guys in the class, and I had no qualms with that. But I think it was because I was raised from that male viewpoint of, you're just going to do it. And so I didn't see it as, you're a girl and you can't do it. So I think that really helped me. And it wasn't until later when that you're a girl started to come into play that I was like, wait. am I not supposed to be doing this? Because I just always assumed I was, kind of a thing.
No, yeah, I definitely saw that too. I was actually the youngest girl in my family for like 15 years until my little cousin came along. But for a long time, it's like I was with my male cousins, with my brother, hang out with my grandparents, things like that. But so I didn't see the divide either. Like maybe around middle school, like they would say, oh, boys are math and science, girls are like history and English. Still, that was the back of the mind type of thing. Because again, I was in my lab or in my mom's lab for like take your kids to work day. So I'm like, that was just always a constant in my life. But I could definitely see how being here at Cedar Crest, where it is a historically women's college, has definitely been able to help at least just open up. My family loves to joke that, because I almost went to my mom's school that she went to for college, and that was also, it used to be historically women's, but then it switched to co-ed in the past. It's been a few years now, but they like to joke I found a place with even less guys than there. But yeah, I definitely see how just how you're raised sometimes can influence like some of those perceptions again, but really just seeing past them and even just getting the exposure of different people and different people's beliefs has really been eye-opening and really cool to explore as we're here at Cedar Crest. Just being able to see everything everyone does for the clubs, for work, for projects, for exhibitions, all sorts of things. They got dance works going on opening tonight, which is really cool. They worked really hard on that. But it's just crazy seeing how many opportunities there are.
Yeah, when you started talking about your family, Yvonne, I was raised by a single mother, and my older brother's 12 years older than me. So he, for the most part, took care of me when my mom was at work, taking care of both of us. And growing up, I didn't realize the divide between males and females because my mom raised us to believe that we could do anything. She did have like her beliefs on like what women should do and what boys shouldn't do. So like wrestling was like off the table for me, which I was okay with because I'm clumsy and I hurt myself by myself. I don't need someone else's help. But I was the first in my family to actually complete college, and she was so excited about that. But when I decided to go to library school, in my family it was like a misconception because we had mechanics in our family, we had builders, things like that, more hands-on things. And when I explained that it was still hands-on, they were like, really? But I see it as books. So that belief of like families building us is true. And like now that I'm older, I see more of the divide between men and women, especially like my mom is starting to become more of the traditional Hispanic mother where it's like, well, you should be married with kids. And I'm like, you have a cat for a grandchild, that's fine. And you have my nephew. But our families have such a huge impact on us that we don't even realize it. Like, Jean, you said you're the only chemist in your family. Who would have thought that? I'm the only librarian in my family, and there's mostly mechanics and like trade school and all that. So the paths that we take and those pivotal moments that we've had in our lives, even if they've been bad, have shaped us to be where we are now. And like Alison, you say you were shy. Yeah, I agree with that. When you first came to the library, you were extremely shy. But we've all had the honor here to see how much you've grown and how much you came into this. Because I bet if you would have told yourself a year ago that you would have this event, you would not believe it.
Nope, definitely not.
So I hope I'm a pivotal moment in your life, and that the other three are also pivotal moments.
Definitely. Just classes I've been able to have with some of the professors here on the panel, and just being able to, I know I haven't had a class with you yet, but just being able to talk and have some of these conversations is still really cool. The work I've been able to do at the library, some of the coworkers I've met here, students I've met in clubs or classes. Yeah, everyone has that little impact. It's important to take away the good ones. So more on the impact, why did you all decide to become teachers, professors, educators, things like that?
I'll start. I'll let the middle person start. I always really liked working one-on-one with students, and so I tutored really starting like in high school and on up, And then when I was a graduate student, it's like pretty common practice to have like undergrads or rotating graduate students in the lab working with you one-on-one, and I really liked that. Like I really, really enjoyed teaching somebody how to work in the lab or how to do something new. That always really spoke to me. And speaking of pivotal moments, so there's a professor who, she just retired a couple years ago from Swarthmore. Her name's Amy Ballmer. And she came and gave a talk when I was a graduate student. And she basically, the take home of her talk was, right, here, I'm doing this really cool research and I'm working with these really amazing undergrads and I'm doing it together. And it just really spoke to me. And so I was already kind of thinking about really focusing on teaching, but that really kind of pushed me over the edge. And then the cool story of that is that when I came here, right, many years later, I got to connect with her and right, say how much I appreciated that, and so that was pretty cool. So I think I just always really liked, right, we talked about seeing those aha moments. I liked seeing that in students. Right, I like, frankly, being around young people, right? There's a lot of energy and excitement and curiosity that I really feed off of too. And so, yeah, being able to do that every day is really cool, so, yeah.
So I decided to be, a professor and teach STEM, only because I wanted to be part of helping shape teachers that are going to be out there and working with our little kids, from pre-K to 12th grade. I wanted to be able to guide teachers in being able to use into their teaching method, their teaching style, good evidence-based instruction and strategies, and honestly, try to get out of that cycle of education that I see that's going on, and let me just say that it's really hard. It's really hard because one of the things that I see that when I put my student teachers in schools with really good teachers though, right? But it's hard because education changes, STEM changes, everything changes. It gets, it's more updated, there's more information, there's new research out there, so therefore, our pre-service teachers need to be updated as well, and they are. So, but when they go back to the classroom to do their practice work, I notice that they revert back to the old ways because, it's the influence that sometimes our mentor teachers have and even the districts have is so great that it doesn't allow room for change. And that's at least that's one of the challenges that I've seen. And because of, these, good relationships that I try to establish with the schools, I'm like, do you mind just allowing the teachers do a little bit of this, which is really good. And, it helps them in turn to see, it works. So that's one of the reasons why I do this, and I'm here because I want to be part in helping pre-service teachers and to see that hopefully one day, our education system changes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because I'm really curious. I mean, dating myself, but in high school, you went to this class, that class, this class. Is there any way that in the education system that you can do that idea that, they're related and it's this and this class? To me, that would be the way to really, and that's where going back to, the lucky things we get to do of talking food chemistry, right? Food and chemistry. Wait, what? Cooking and chemistry? No. I would love to see our schools go that direction.
And you know what? And that's part of, why our education program needs to be at a certain way, providing, this innovative ways on how to teach so that our pre-service teachers, when they become in-service teachers, they have that knowledge that they need to design a lesson or design a curriculum, but then they also need the autonomy to be able to implement these innovative ways, and that's really important. That's something that many districts still lack. giving the teacher the autonomy to be creative and use all these different skills in really innovative way. Can you imagine what, a class like yours in high school, the kids would be, lined up to just enter your class. And that would be fascinating. And all the critical thinking, all the collaboration, all of their those rich conversations that would occur from that one class, and all that indirect learning on theories and concepts, it happens, right?
Some schools are trying that. My STEM Academy, they tried doing interdisciplinary work between, like, you had your history class and you had your like STEM intro to engineering class, but they tried combining them. Like, I remember we've done projects where we would 3D model different things based on, like, some of the historical concepts we were talking about. I still have on my fridge a little plaque I made about Mozart. But you would have to go and you would have to do, like, the historical research, and then it even applies some of the art too when you would do your designing. But you would incorporate some of, like, the engineering aspects into it. So some schools are trying. It's just very hard for them to maintain. So it didn't last long that I got to see too much of that interdisciplinary work. Like, they tried as much as they could, but there's only so much they could do with, the program was also very young. I was only the second class to go through that program. They called us the Trailblazer class, because much like a lot of the workers here at the library, we do a lot. We do too much sometimes. So that's how my class was. So we really tried pushing and giving a lot of feedback so they could have more of that work, because we all loved it. We're like, it's so cool, like, doing we did, like, hydraulic arms, but we had them all doing different things. So one person had it playing, like, a ukulele, someone had just regular claws as, like, a movie set prop and things like that. But those really interdisciplinary works are so much fun and really can help students if it's applied more in the classrooms.
Right. For example, right now at the elementary level, there's for ELA, a chunk of the school day is dedicated 2 hours for ELA. A chunk of the time is dedicated for math, maybe about an hour and a half. And then, there's very little room for any other, like the arts and STEM to happen, to occur. But if we reduce that and we increase, or we add, a STEM lesson throughout the day. STEM lesson, like, to create those, the hydraulic hand, you have to, measure. You have to use, creative thinking. You have to use all these skills and concepts that you normally use in math, and in science, right? And in literature, because I imagine you have to do some background, some little research on what their purpose and how to create them and all that. So you're still using all those, but in a different way. And I think the misconception that, increasing ELA or increasing math is going to make things better. I mean, for so many years, I don't think it hasn't worked. I don't think it's going to work, right? But again, it's changing our educational system, and I think that would at least, help.
I think we're still on the question of why did we become teachers? I think that will answer. So mine was an accidental opportunity. That's how I'm gonna word it. Basically, I was asked by our library director, Stephanie, when I was graduating with my master's, if I was interested in teaching information literacy. So I did that, did the social work for the first time ever, had students come to me to ask for further question and instruction, so that felt nice. And I guess this is where the accidental part comes in. I guess I was observed one day when I was, like, helping someone, because I was then told to Dr. Pete Natty on campus, to be a writing instructor. So that was the accident, but I took that opportunity to say, you know what, let me try. So I pushed back the imposter syndrome and said, you know what, let me see if I could somehow do this. So for the first year, they had to read articles, and one of them was argumentative and persuasive. So I gave them articles that talked about libraries and if they were still relevant, or if technology was taking over for libraries. And they read those, and they're like,
And it broke it down to like even more details as to what libraries do. And they're like, I didn't know libraries to do that. And I'm like, yeah, our library does that. And that same week, I had Nick come in to teach research because I thought it would be kind of biased to have me teach library while also being the writing professor. And like seeing that light pop up furthered my belief in wanting to be a teacher and wanting to show someone how to do something. And even if like my path later on doesn't continue that, in the library you still have that opportunity to help someone on more of a one-on-one basis, to give them that information, to lead them down a rabbit hole is what we like to joke about here. So Alison has witnessed this, but I have moments where I'm like researching something so deep that like I fall down a rabbit hole and I have like 20 articles, and then I'll come out of the rabbit hole and I'll be like, that was a lot of information. Why did I do that to myself? And I'll see students do that too, and I tell them, okay, what do you do once you're out of the rabbit hole? Because that's a lot of information you're processing. And they're like, oh, well, I start writing. I was like, don't start writing. Take the break. Let it seep over you and, like, think about what you just read, because then more of you come out. So I like to call it my accidental opportunity, because it started as an opportunity as a librarian and then accidentally became an adjunct here at the college. And I get to influence so many others, and, like, listening to you three, and like even watching you do your activities at the Mayfair is nice, because it's like there's more we can do that we didn't even think we could do, and more conversations that can be had, and rabbit holes to fall down, and mazes to go into. So I guess that's why I sort of became an educator indirectly. Title is librarian. We're not seen as teachers, but we do teach.
Yeah, my teaching experience is also completely accidental. I was actually like just sitting in the science center. I think I was either submitting an assignment or about to run into a final, but a professor came by and he's like, hey, we actually need a TA for one of the labs. I'm like, sure, I just gotta submit this real quick. But then yeah, I went in because I had great TAs when I was in the general bio labs, and I saw how much they helped me, they helped my other students, and I would love to be that, because they helped so much in the labs, just understanding the concepts, working through things, again, giving me those aha moments that are so influential. I wanted to be able to do that for other students. And even I had the opportunity to also be a research director, where I walked students through my research that I'm doing in the Department of Biological Sciences, where I do cancer research, basically introducing them to the research side of things too. But it was really impactful, and even at the end of the semester, having a student come up to me and being like, thank you, you helped me so much. It was really great. I wish I had more time so I could do it again, because I really enjoyed being a TA, but schedules do not allow for that all the time. But really being able to see the impact it has on the students, even if it's just that little like, hey, you just put the wrong thing in the numerator or denominator, or those little simple things, to help them really understand the concepts, want them to continue being part of like their pivotal journey through wherever they may end up, whether it's in the sciences, in completely different departments, whatever it may be. Just being able to help them down that path was really, really incredible. So I don't know if we want to do
2 questions more, and then we'll open it to audience. So you have to choose which 2, Alison.
Yeah, I have a list here. Okay. So I guess 2 more questions, and then we'll end up with that final question. So I know there's a whole bunch of really cool opportunities, both on campus, off campus. Do you guys know of like anything to help people really get involved if they want to explore some of these topics? Like, do you know of programs? Do you know of ways they can just search? How do they find some of these opportunities to really explore more these concepts, whether it be STEM, education, whether it be they're trying to figure stuff out, so they want a bit of everything? Any ideas?
Talk to your local librarian.
Yeah.
We are a fountain of information, and if we don't know, we hunt down the answers. We love challenges.
I would say that, you know, there's always organizations that are focused on that. So like I'm very actively involved in the American Chemical Society. And so they actually have like a website where you could look at careers in chemistry, biochemistry, engineering, and see, you know, like what education you need, what's an everyday gonna look like on the job. And then they basically give you a list of people that you could actually reach out to and ask questions to. But they also, for undergrads, have what are known as, there's a lot of different names, but REUs, research experiences for undergrads. Those are summer things that you can do and get paid. You can look for local jobs. I did a lot of water testing in my summers. Again, I thought I was going biology, but there was a lot of chemistry in that. And so I would say, you know, first network. Second, just look for organizations, because there's probably already a lot of information, that rabbit hole of finding things, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say pretty much what you said. that I think like the vast majority of various things that I've done have all been just from talking to people and somebody saying, oh hey, I know you're really interested in whatever, have you heard about this thing? And so I think, right, for students, talking to professors, talking to other students, right, older students, right, just sort of building your network thing, I think, is so important and often overlooked, right? And I think also COVID made it really hard in some ways to do it, but also we've seen ways we can do it through virtual connections that, right, could be good, but I think, right, it changed things a little bit, whether that was for the good or the bad. But I think just those really kind of casual conversations make such a big difference, right? I would not have been here except that I knew somebody who knew somebody who knew that there's a position open, right? And so, yeah, I think those connections are so important.
I agree. In the educators for the K to 12, you know, establishing those professional learning networks are really, really important. There's also different types of conferences for educators from K to 12 that, you know, you can always go to and just learn a little bit more about the different areas that you can apply in, you know, STEM and STEAM. And, you know, the great thing about STEM, that sometimes your STEAM lesson can be a little bit more science focused, a little bit more technology focused. And so these conferences can show you, you know, what that looks like depending on which of the acronyms are you actually focusing on, right? So that helps. And, you know, just participating in different after-school activities obviously for educators that run these different types of STEAM activities and programs.
Yeah, I would also definitely say, network, talk to your friends, talk to your teachers, talk to other classmates, talk to guidance counselors, because they really have a lot of information about clubs and organizations, both local, or some of them have websites. LinkedIn's a really good source. I know if you're looking for internships, a lot of organizations actually posted the link to their internship sites for National Intern Day, so you can check that out too. That's how I found some of the first internships I applied to for this coming summer. But yeah, really just being open to opportunities, checking out local, really going down that rabbit hole. I don't know how many times I've looked and had like 30 tabs open on like 2 different browser tabs. But yeah, definitely just being open and exploring. Maybe it's something you don't fit every box, but going out for it, the worst they can say is no. So even just seeing, like, would this be something, maybe looking for, there's internships and there's also, I believe, called externships, where it's more like a 3-day thing rather than like a few week long thing, so you can just get a peek into what a day in the life of that position may be. Contact local people in some positions you might be looking for. Like me for forensics, I might reach out to my local forensics lab, be like, hey, can I shadow you for a bit? Things like that. Just really reaching out, building some of those networking connections can really, really help.
And I guess I should put a plug in because I'm working on this, but I'm part of the ACRL, which is American Collegiate Research Libraries. Is that right, Shane? ACRL. I'm completely wrong of him. But the Delaware Valley chapter, I'm actually the vice president of it, and one of the things that I have to do is create a mentorship. And I'm gonna actually open it up this January to be not only undergrad and graduates and professionals of library science, but people who are thinking about libraries. So they'll be partnered with a mentor. So look into mentorships is basically the short end of this. And mentees will be paired with mentors, and you get to shadow them for a day, like Alison said, but also have a conversation and be able to have that support system in the future and build your networking.
I have someone for you.
I have two already. So a third would be nice. I will be announcing that because I do have permission from Dr. Gomez in January to say that I'm doing that, but I'm only going to have my name on it for the initial thing and then talk further about it. So in January, be on the lookout for that email from me about mentorships, and I will send it to faculty and staff as well. Because I recognize here in the library, there were students that asked me about library school. And then when I became part of this local chapter, is what it's called, then I was able to create this mentorship and was like, why are we excluding students who aren't in library school? We should include them. So I'm now expanding it. Or even people changing their careers.
Okay, and I guess for a final question before we get into questions from audience, what is your favorite thing about working in STEM and STEM education?
I think we touched on that with the aha moment.
We have.
True.
I guess working with you three would be mine.
I was going to say, yeah, I have to agree that the thing I really love being here at Cedar Crest is that I can walk down the hallway to a completely different department and say, I have this idea, and I already know the people in that department, and I can collaborate with them. Like, I love that right now there's Bog Bodies upstairs, which plays right into my course. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the collaboration across Cedar Crest is one of its winning moments of you can come in and do library and art and forensic science and you have everybody backing you versus saying, no, this is what you're supposed to do and only this is what you're supposed to do.
Unless it's too big. If it's too big, then they may say no, but they'll say no in a way of, let's make it smaller.
And like the opportunity, like, I guess add like I'm running my first study abroad. I'm so excited about it. I mean, I've done a lot through the soccer expedition, but you know, it's Greek philosophers building science, and you know, everyone kind of looked at me, and I'm like, well, where do you think it all came from, kind of a thing, or getting to do an art science. Yeah.
I just want to add that, you know, I think like the best part of doing this is, and honestly, I'm gonna be as transparent as possible. It's just like I get to do fun stuff, and like it's like I can spend what I would find fun. Maybe somebody else might not find fun, and like I would spend my Saturdays like I wanna do a new lesson, so I would spend literally the whole day trying to work it out, and how to do a series circuit, how to do it with a sensory, with it, and okay, I need to figure it out. I need to see where are my mistakes and try over again. And I think that's the thing that I find so fascinating. It's just like the problem solving, the doing it over again, and then seeing after a while like, oh, this is it. This is what the next thing I'm going to be teaching my students, the pre-service teachers, and then I want them to take it to a different level. So that's at least that's what I like.
Yeah, I think that people are so important. I think kind of generally what keeps me engaged in science is that it does change all the time, right? That there's always new stuff to find out about or to discover yourself, and it's hard. It's a lot of work, but those things are really cool, and so I get excited about that. And then, right, like I think, right, you already said, but I think the ability then to talk to, right, people in all kinds of different disciplines about that is also really awesome. So, yeah.
Yeah, I really like just the opportunity and really the creativity you can have with it. You can go in any sort of different direction. Being able to start scientific research as a freshman is something I never thought I'd be able to do, but I was given the opportunity coming right into Cedar Crest. And I've been with my research now since spring of my freshman year, still with it. I've been able to present it at conferences. Just being able to really have those connections with people here at Cedar Crest, at conferences, at wherever it may be, really just having that opportunity, that openness. Usually you talk to someone who even has like a vague interest in STEM, they just love bouncing ideas, brainstorming, really just hearing ins and outs. Like you said, we won't usually say no, but we'll try and modify it so you can do it in a way that'll work and not burn yourself out. But just really having fun and exploring all sorts of possibilities, different medias, different possibilities for really anything you set your minds to. It's just a world of possibilities. You have no idea where you may end up.
I guess we can open it to the audience. Also, I looked up ACRL because Sherry's gonna look at it some days. I mixed it up with ALA, so it's Association of College and Research Libraries, not American, because most library associations start with American. I would like to give that disclaimer.
It's not your fault.
So I fixed it, Sherry, I fixed it. But I guess from our online audience, because we did have a maximum of 8 at one point, we're at 6 right now, and our 3 that's in live, what questions do you have for us? And Nick can answer questions too if he wants.
I'll go if there's no one coming from anywhere else. So I think that I'm always trying to crack the code, as I think Yvonne has kind of addressed this right away, about where do we lose people who are passionate about science or math and then aren't. And I'm still trying to crack that code, but I really think it's so helpful. I think for some reason I feel like, especially with math, and to a lesser degree with science, there's so many places along the path that things do get confusing or hard, and there's no one there for people to ask for help, that they know that they can ask for help. And it's got to be immediate. It can't be like, it's so, especially with math, like you're doing a problem and you want to know then, right then, I need help now. And I know we have like 24/7 tutoring online, but you kind of have to, and then, then somebody actually finally has the courage to do it and it doesn't work, or some stupid thing. But it just seems like it's something like, I think back to what helped me succeed in math, at least, was having a student who worked with me, like like we were in 7th grade together and we both liked math, and our teachers let us work together on these problems in class, and it was like, I couldn't get something, but she could, and then I could, and it was like that confidence. And I'd go home and my dad could do a lot of the math I had to do, so he was there. As soon as I hit a brick wall, he was like, let's look at that. Oh, I remember crying over negative numbers. I don't get these. I would like sitting on the couch with them. And like most people, if you don't have somebody who can help you right then, you just start to lose confidence. And I don't know if that's what I feel like happens so frequently, and I don't know how to fix that.
I've been seeing, and maybe this is something new, this is a COVID thing, of not understanding what that number means. And again, it goes back to that big picture and connecting it. So, math, you plug in numbers, you get numbers, but what do the numbers mean? And I guess, so maybe, I don't know, I feel like that's being kind of lost in the math. I'm not saying it's all of it, but that there's kind of a loss of what does it mean, right?
The adaptability of it.
Yeah.
I feel in the library field we see that a lot. So when it comes to research, we tend to have students come to us when they're at panic mode. I have a stress bucket for it because when they start panicking, I'm not really good with emotions, so I just pull my stress bucket out and I'm like, pick an item, take a deep breath, and we'll talk in like 5 minutes. Let's just break mode this. And once they calm down and they breathe, they're like, do you just keep that in your office? Yes, but look how you are distracted now. So let's start from the beginning. What are you researching? Let's pretend you haven't done any research at all. You haven't looked at anything, but what are you focusing on? And once we have that sentence, and I tell them, all right, let's break it down.
Yeah.
And like, I think the breakdown is where people are getting lost, because in most subjects, you become hyper-focused on your subject and your ideas and your topic, that you don't see the bigger
Big
picture
picture.
or see the possibility of different terms or words. So something I've adapted into my lessons lately when it comes to research is, do you speak multiple languages? And I include slang. So if they grew up in the city, I include slang as a different language. And they're like, yeah, why? So the word you say in slang, what does it mean in academic English? And they're like, this. And that's the word. And they're like, I'm like, what's the definition? And they'll tell me, and I'm like, look, you have two words for the same definition. Therefore, when you research, use different words that mean the same thing. And I will pull up a thesaurus online and say, I use this one. And they'll be like, wait, you use a thesaurus? Yes, because there's too many words in the world to know all of them. And they're like, huh, I didn't even think about it. Because I speak two different languages, there's two different words for the same thing. Like, I partially speak Spanish, but I also speak slang from when I grew up in the Bronx, and I sort of speak English when my brain wants to work. But I think about the fact that there's so many words, so many terms, so many math problems that end up being the same answer. And there's no one path to things. And even in life, there's no one path in things. So you have to be willing to adapt. Sorry.
So I view it just a little bit different. So and again, my mind immediately goes to the classroom, because that you know, being a STEM educator, I automatically think about how to I'm thinking of students, and then as teachers, when we're teaching our lessons and when we're grouping students, we're immediately, at least I'm thinking of, okay, my students' zone of proximal development. That is one of the key targets that I always have, making sure that whatever instruction that's going on, it's at their zone of proximal development. And if they're working on that, then I'm going to put them with peers. And because that does is they're not working at a frustrational level, because then learning doesn't happen. Instruction, you can teach the best lesson ever, but if it's too hard, then instruction, learning is not going to happen. And again, the great thing about STEAM and STEM is that you're able to work with groups, and when you're working with other students, they are fulfilling that zone of proximal development, because through your peers, you're listening, you are changing your mindset, you're understanding what he's saying and she's saying and he's saying, and then you're like, okay, so it helps you meet your needs as a learner. Okay, and when you don't have that and you're trying to do things on your own, it becomes really, really hard and frustrating. Students become frustrated with their learning. And again, it's part of that also is when you don't understand the terms, those tier 3 words that pertain to content. It's all about the knowledge also. Have instruction? Has there been explicit instruction happening in the classroom? Has there been, building upon that knowledge as well? Because everything actually affects students, and again, part of that is, also is creating that safe environment where students can feel, comfortable that if they don't know something, they know that somehow they are going to learn and they're going to be okay if they don't know something at that moment. That safe environment is really, really important. At least for our elementary students, it's important, because if a safe environment is not established, then they won't have the confidence to understand that, okay, they don't get something, they made a mistake, then that's it, that's the end of the world for our little ones, right? But no, with a safe environment, they're like, okay, I'll they'll get it eventually. And at least at the elementary level, that's really, really important. I've noticed at the college level that's also really
Oh,
important.
yeah.
You know,
It's
that safe
definitely-
environment, you know,
Yeah.
because it just
Yeah.
helps them make that, again, it's that mind shift of, you know, that fixed mindset over to, you know, the mindset of, that growth mindset that, you know, this is your starting point and, you know, you're making progress, you know, and that's what we want to see. Yeah, that's what it took.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Intui's thoughts. Do you three want to ask me an Alison questions? I know you would take that
I
opportunity.
have a question. What gave you the idea to do this particular focus for the panel discussion today?
That's a good
So,
question.
yeah, earlier this month was actually, it was National Women in STEM? Or was it just National STEM Day?
I know it was also
I think it was
transgender
National
STEM.
STEM Day.
There's
I
a
think-
National STEM Day, there's a National Women Day, International Women Day, there's a
Yeah.
couple of
I think
different,
it was a
they
National
all
STEM
probably
Day.
hit around each other too.
So this actually started as one of me and Nick's ideas, because we were planning out for the semester, and we mentioned it to Allison, and Allison took it and ran with it. That's why for this Nick Talk, we actually made it Nick Talks plus Allison. And Nick actually opted out on being part of the panel because we wanted to focus on women.
I'm not a woman, I'm not in STEM. It would be weird for me to be on that panel.
Yeah, I mean, technically you are in STEM and the technology.
Alright.
But yeah, everything that's come to fruition now has been Allison's brainchild, and me and Nick have mostly just been like, huh, you took this further than we thought. And then when the science department, because I don't remember which department it was, got the NASA grant,
Yeah, that's both biology and chemistry.
we definitely thought we needed to highlight women in STEM, because like we've mentioned so many times on this campus, we get so many opportunities and collaborations that basically we make things happen.
Yeah.
So when the NASA grant happened, me and Nick both felt really proud to be part of like that moment, to see it
Yeah.
happen. And so we mentioned women in STEM, and then, like I said, Alison took it, and she was very specific about having one from each department if possible. And I mentioned Yvonne because you do this STEAM camp over the summer, and I feel like that's really good work to talk about, and like talk about it from an educator's point of view.
Yeah.
Because like you said, so many young women lose that interest in sciences and STEM and STEAM, and you try to bring it back in them.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I also did the OLA jams and was through a grant, and I took the opportunity to do a little bit of research on that. And one of the pre-assessments I gave them, and I asked a question like how do you feel about, you know, math and science, and have you ever done STEM? So their pre-assessment was a little bit negative. Like they weren't really good in STEM, and so I also asked another question, like, how do you see yourself with your knowledge in whatever area, like science, math, in comparison to your male peers? And again, their responses were a little bit negative in the sense of how they perceive themselves as, you know, as individuals who knew like any type of science or technology or engineering or math. But after the end of our program, again, I gave them the same exact survey, and this time it was the answers were, it was really, really nice to read their answers, because their perception of how they saw themselves changed. So if I remember correctly, let me say one of the little girl's answer was, now I can do things with the 3D printer, I can figure coding, and I am better than the boy that's in my classroom who thinks he knows math. So it was a really nice response, and it just gave me like, oh, you know, her self-confidence, her self-efficacy, just, you know, it just boosted up just through, again, promoting that safe environment, promoting the shift of mindset from being fixed to growth, and just giving them the exposure of just, you know, doing something different that they don't normally do in their classrooms. Yeah. So.
Oh, it's interesting how you mentioned the fact of self-confidence. There's this misconception that self-confidence or self-worth is not important, but us as women recognize the importance and the understanding of like that affects everything. And it even if your self-confidence and self-worth is low, the imposter syndrome or the voice in your head telling you can't do something becomes more powerful, and you basically it becomes an everyday struggle to fight that. But I think we should end on Alison's ending question because it is 5:56, so we have 4 minutes left.
So yeah, I guess it's basically just final. Do you have any last like advice for someone starting their career journey, or anything you wish you knew when you were starting yours? Like last parting piece of advice.
Listen to someone when they tell you if you can do it, you can do it. Or meet the Robinson saying, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's keep moving forward, I think it is.
So for pre-service teachers, and anyone who, and really anyone, is just try it. Try it. Don't allow the opinions of others dictate your actions or your future. Just try it, give it a whirl, and then you can assess and say, oh, I tried. Do you want to try again? Sure, try again. You want to try it another time? Go ahead and try. It's that it's the importance that if you see something really important, or really that valuable in learning, then do it. The other part is, increase your knowledge in the area that you're interested in. Do the research, do reading, and you'll see the more knowledge that you have, the more you're going to want to learn, because it's just like, oh my gosh, I know this, but then I'm like, what happened to this area? And then you notice it's like a pattern, that goes on. At least, that would be the advice that I would give to pre-service teachers or anyone who's interested in STEAM.
Yeah, I think my advice overlaps with that a lot, right? Is to ask questions and to be curious about things, right? To, really talk to the people around you about what you're thinking about. And yeah, I think just, right, sometimes I think there can be the problem of not knowing what's out there, so not knowing what to ask. And that's why I think just sort of the even if it's not really exactly asking a question, right, but sort of like talking to people a little bit more broadly about things that you might be interested in, trying to really explore those. I think that's the most important thing, and being open to whatever new things, right? Being open to trying a really hard math problem and sticking to it or whatever.
I'm going to continue on that. Curiosity was the word I was going to use. Stay curious and don't be afraid to ask questions. But understand, failure doesn't mean you have to stop.
Yeah.
Failure is how you learn. And so maybe you fail at that math question the first time, but maybe the second time something else clicks. And maybe it takes 3 or 4 times before you can get through that entire problem. Don't walk away when you fail something. If it's what you really love, persist. Fight for it. And surround yourself with a crowd that will cheer you on when you fail, so you go at it again.
But also, don't forget to take the breath.
Yeah.
If you hit that point of frustration where all you see is red, but you don't want to quit, take a step back. Because looking at it with calm, fresh eyes is more important than trying to keep going after it. So take that break. You might grad school for me took 3 years to actually start from my undergrad. So take that break and determine, but don't give up. Know that you're gonna go back to it eventually.
Yeah, I guess my advice would be stay open to opportunities. You don't know what they may be. You don't know what they could lead to. I never imagined I'd be doing research, let alone as a freshman in college. And now I've presented at 2 conferences. I'm considering even research as a career, looking at graduate schools, stuff I never even considered back in high school. But here I am. It's led me to pursue potential internships that I never even thought I'd consider. It's led to so many other opportunities and opened so many new doors, looking at other majors, other programs, other things. just being open to that other side of things, even if you don't see yourself there now, it doesn't mean you're incapable of it for the future. Just really staying open, taking feedback, and just moving forward. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming both virtually and in person. Thank you to our amazing panelists. And
Thank
yeah.
you for working.
Thank you. Thank you.